Today we have a very exciting topic to discuss, called spreadsheets. Whoa, like Excel spreadsheets. I didn't use Excel though, because Excel takes money to use if you're gonna do it for commercial purposes, like making a game you plan to sell. So I decided to use LibreCalc instead, which is a free alternative to Excel. The only downside is it's like probably twice as janky, but it also comes with full integration with Python. Um, so Excel does allow you to use Python inside of your sheet, but LibreCalc allows you to use Python in your IDE of choice and then connect the functions you've written in Python to um, your sheet and you call them in macros. Although I haven't looked too much into Excel macros and scripting, I do believe that Excel does not allow this sort of integration. So you can write Python code inside of Excel, like in your cells, and it will work, but you cannot um, write like a Python file and then connect that Python file to your Excel spreadsheet and use it in your Excel macros. So yeah, that's something LibreCalc has going for it. Um, I won't lie though, the API for the Python for LibreCalc's Python integration is a little bit obtuse. It took me a while to sort of figure out what the hell was going on. But also like it's not like terribly written. I think it just takes a little bit to get into it, and like all APIs, it's sort of the same thing, right? You just have to figure out what the hell is going on before everything starts making sense. Um, but yeah, I'm just here today to show you what I've done. I guess it's been like probably 2 weeks of work on trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the API and stuff. For yeah, what I've done in these 2 weeks when it comes to LibreCalc. Uh, I guess we'll get straight into it then. Well, I mean, I've been talking for 2 minutes, but I sort of made this spreadsheet to handle modifiers in my game. What the modifiers are stuff that can be rolled onto items. Like a modifier for added max mana lesser would be a modifier on the item which would affect the player by giving them mana, right? And in these AOPG types of games, you have like a whole bunch of different types of modifiers that can be rolled onto your items. Um, and with all of these modifiers that can be rolled onto your items, it starts getting a little bit complex, data-wise. So I decided that it would probably be better for me to make a spreadsheet to handle all this data. Uh, Main problems that comes with making a spreadsheet to handle all this data is that because there's this much data, you need some way to navigate your data. So after you put in like maybe 1,000 different modifiers into the spreadsheet, you don't want to like just have no way of navigating all this data, because then you have to scroll up and down to find what you're looking for. You do like Control F, I guess, to find what you're looking for, but then yeah, not very efficient, not very nice to use. So I added all of my modifiers into the spreadsheet. That's the first thing I did. And the data that I have associated with it is like, okay, what items can it roll on? What attribute typed items can it roll on? What stat strings does it affect? So what these are basically just what stat it affects. If it's like a added or increase or multiplicative effect, if it's a conversion, a gain, or just like a basic modifier. If it's gonna be a local effect, like does it affect the values present on the item, or does it affect the actor globally? Um, and then this is just for like the conversions and gains. It's like, okay, if it is a conversion stat, what is it converting to? Combination size, we'll talk about that later. Tier type, this is just, honestly, it has like no effect in game. It's just to sort of sort out these different types of modifiers, which are only different in what items they can roll on. So like obviously you don't want your ring modifiers to be as important as your body armor modifiers, right? So then the ring modifiers, I made them into a lesser variant with lower rolls in general as compared to the greater variant. Yeah, so this, it's just there to make it easier for me to figure out like what the hell's going on. Um, and search tags, this is just also for me to make it easier for me to navigate like the spreadsheet. It just has no in-game effect. Um, in the game later on, I will have tags associated with my modifiers, but those tags will be generated based on the stats that they affect. So I'm gonna have like some data linking stats to the tags, and then I'll just generate the tag list of each modifier based on the stats they affect, right? Yeah, so this is just like the bare bones sort of structure here, right? You have all this, scroll down, make the changes you need, and then you do like an import to your Godot pandas library. Um, I could have just left that this, but then, like I said, it would be very annoying to like have a whole bunch of stats here. You have to scroll through it, and also be very annoying. It's like, okay, um, I'm looking for the weight table for my added mana lesser. So I'm gonna go through here. I have to scroll there, or maybe I do a search. It's like, okay, added mana lesser, and well, I didn't find it. Actually, why didn't I find? Wait, what? Oh, added max mana lesser, right? Added max mana, right? Yeah, and then I'll find like this, and yeah, for me to do that every time, kind of inconvenient, right? So I decided to make a sort of script which automatically links the modifiers here to the weight table. So you just go here, you click here, it brings you to added mana lesser. And this is automatically generated. So like if I delete all of these, I can just click Control 3. It generates them all back again. It goes to the right place, no problem. And then if I go to my equipment weights and I add something to the bottom here, like another weight table, as long as the key I use in this weight table exists in this weight string ID column, it will generate a link to that weight table I made. Um, and also just to make sure that I don't get lost in the sauce here and make duplicate weight tables or forget to make a weight table for certain uh, modifiers I've implemented in this table over here. I've got like a duplicate, really bare bones duplicate checker here. Whenever I run Control 3 to generate like the links and stuff, it will write down anything in this column which doesn't have an associated weight table, and it will write down anything in this column which has multiple weight tables. That way I can sort of figure out if anything's going wrong here, organizationally wise, right? So that's one functionality I implemented. Another functionality I implemented is by default, um, Excel and LibreCalc do not allow you to have data validation, which allows you to drop down and um, append your selection to a list of items. So if you do like this, it would just add what you selected to the cell. But then the moment you, so it's kind of not easy to show because of the script I made here. But if I didn't have the script right and I selected strength, then it would put strength into the cell. And then if I selected, let's say, intelligence, that it would not append intelligence to the strength. It would delete strength and then replace it with intelligence. And this is not bad in many situations. In fact, it would be perfectly fine if my game did not have hybrid stats. So what are hybrid stats? Hybrid stats, it's not this, right? This is not a hybrid stat. What this is an easier way for me to implement modifiers with many similar values. So like for example, lightning, cold, fire, abnormal resist. All these types of resistances, you're not gonna have different rolled values for them. They're all gonna be like the same weight table, right? Like you don't want your items to have inherently higher fire resistance rolls, right? It just doesn't make that much sense if your game is balanced around each type having like its own um, section of the damage pie. So all of these modifiers would have the same exact weight table. So why not just make them all share the same weight table? So how I did this is, if I want multiple modifiers to share the same weight table, then I give them a weight string, right? And this will replace whatever sort of generated weight string ID uh it would have generated in the first place, right? And it will just use this to generate the weight ID. And all of these will share this same weight ID. And um thusly share the same weight table. Um what the hell was I talking? What did I want to talk about? Yeah, and in order to do this, you would just like, you would do you saw how the system worked, right? I would just do this and this, right? And then it would add them to the list of stat strings. Um, this makes it easier for me to implement changes to, like, let's say if I want to change all of my resistance modifiers in my game, then instead of changing like 4 different tables, I just have to change one table. And then let's say I want to change how all my resistance modifiers to become prefixes instead of suffixes, then I can just change like one value here instead of changing like a whole bunch of values for each one. And the same for like the items they can roll on, right? Like you don't want to be able to roll fire resistance but not cold resistance on a piece of armor, right? That doesn't sound very correct. So all of them share the same item types they can roll on. So if I want to change what item types they can roll on, then I just have to change one value here. Streamlines the whole process, very simple. Um, I guess we can talk about combination size now. This basically allows me to do the same thing but with hybrid stats. So like for example, if I want hybrid lightning fire, fire cold, abnormal cold, like all of those stats, like I want them all to exist. Um, then instead of making a different stat for each one, I can just change this to combination size 2, and it will just, so it won't do anything in this spreadsheet. It will show like the same weight string ID, and then it won't change anything about the stat strings. But when it comes time to parse my spreadsheet, it will automatically form all possible combinations of 2 from this list of stat strings and create a modifier for them. And of course, like how I have it here with the combination size of 1, it will use the same table for all of those hybrids. And it works for combination size 3 as well. No problem. Um, yeah, so that's how I did it to approach that problem of like stats with a lot of shared values. Um, and this is not like a rare occurrence in these types of games, right? Like for example, I have like 5 different attributes. I don't want one attribute to be overrepresented, right? So they'll all probably share the same weight table. So instead of making 5 different types of weight tables, I can just make one weight table, right? Really makes the process faster. Now let's talk about hybrid stats, because that's what we were talking about before I went on this fucking monologue about this implementation. Yeah, my game has hybrid stats, which sort of makes the default implementation of data validity in LibreCalc and Excel kind of not useful, because to implement hybrid stats, I kind of need like this one weight table to be associated with multiple stats. Um, so I need to make like a list of stats here. And I want my hybrid stats to be quite complex. I don't want my hybrid stats to just be 2 stats which both share the same math type and a modifier type and the local type. And yeah, I I don't want it to be like that, because there are many situations where you would want 2 different types of stats in a hybrid stat which don't share the same math type. For example, let's say I want a modifier to increase the number of projectiles an actor shoots and also increase the projectile damage. Well, that would be added to the projectile count, but increased to the projectile damage, and not added, because added to projectile damage is flat added damage. I don't want that. I want increased projectile damage. So to do that, you would just do here. I mean, I don't actually have projectile count or projectile damage here, so that was actually kind of a bad example. But let's say instead I want something to have added constitution and increased constitution. Well, hold up. I need to use the helper here. Then you would have added and increased, right? And then these are both going to be basics. And they're both going to not be local. And this will be a, I'm guessing it's gonna be a prefix. And I mean, I don't know, let's make this like lesser or something. And we'll make it 2 here because this is basically saying don't make don't make 2 different modifiers from this one row. Make 1 modifier, right? And tags here, it's probably attribute. There we go. And yeah, no need for me to make a weight string here because this is a hybrid stat. Yeah, so this allows me to make these types of hybrid stats. Now you may have noticed with this implementation, if I want to streamline the process of implementing multiple hybrid stats, I cannot make these hybrid stats complex stats, right? Because I would have to use this system, right? And then let's say I change this to 2. There is no way, no conceivable way for me to give the hybrid stats here different math types and modifier types. Just because when I form the combinations from these stats, there's no guarantee of order, and even if there was guarantee of order, it would be very what was it? Obfuscated? Obfuscated? Do I know how to speak English? It would be very hidden away from the user. So then you wouldn't know, let's say you had like added and then increase here. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Is the hybrid lightning fire going to be added lightning resistance, increased fire resistance? Or is it maybe perhaps added fire resistance, increased lightning resistance, right? You wouldn't know. So yeah, that's one downside of my approach, but I'm not going to be forming complex hybrid stats like that when I'm using this sort of streamlined approach. If I'm going to make complex hybrid stats like that, I will just make them manually, no problem. Yeah, so that's one thing I implemented, this thing that appends onto a list, just so that I can make the hybrid stats I want. Man, I did whenever I make these videos, I feel like I talk, and then the video time just goes overtime, man. Because I really do try to make it so that it doesn't take too much time to watch. Yeah, I think that's everything I did on this sheet. Just the links to the weights and the lists that you can append to. Now let's take a look at this filter sheet. This basically is used to allow me to navigate my large data set more efficiently and without getting my fucking head blown up because of the complexity, right? How this works is, let's say I want to look at all of the helmets, all of the modifiers that affects only helmets. I would set 1 here. I would set this to activated, and then I would save. Also, hold up. Let me delete this and delete this. And then I will do F3 to activate the filter. Actually, I need to save, and then F3 to activate the filter. And it will only show me the modifiers that affect helmets. This way, if I want to sort of look at the balance of my helmet item in the game, right? Just like figure out what's going on with like the rolls on my helmet, then I can apply this filter, look at all this stuff for helmets only. It also applies the same filter to the weight table, so these are only weights associated with helmets. Now, this filtering this is not as useful because obviously most of the time we're going to be navigating to this just by clicking on the link here. But when I implemented the double filter here, it was before I decided to have like the hyperlink. But it's still sort of useful though. Yeah, so like we have the filter here, and then we can activate like multiple types of saved filters as well. Like let's say I want to have a look at helmets, but only the prefixes that apply to helmets. So then this one is a filter I made before. Hold up, I named it incorrectly, or maybe I changed it while I was testing. So yeah, include prefixes, right? And then I filter, and these are everything. Hold up, am I stupid? No, it's an or. It's an or. Okay. It's an or. I forgot this is how I implemented it. It's anything that affects helmets and anything that's a prefix. If I want to do an and, because this is what I decided, right? The fact that you can very easily do an and just by modifying the same like role here. Like, okay, let's say I want only prefix helmets, right? You can just do that. So there's no point in forming ands, right? Because the functionality is already there. So then we check only ands. We check helmets and prefixes only. And then you'll see it's all prefixes. That's the only thing that shows up. Okay, and then you can change stuff and whatever. It helps with navigation, you know? And then let me reset this. Save, filter. Oh, good. This is just the weights you've already seen. I did a little color code here so I can better. Oh, hold up. This is. Oh yeah. A little color code here so that you can better see where one weight table starts and where one weight table ends. And the duplicate checker here, very bare bones. Whenever I generate these weight links, actually, did I already go through this? Oh, whatever. I'll just go through it faster. Whenever I generate those weight links, it just sort the text. Okay, these are the things which don't have weight tables associated with it, and these are the things with multiple weight tables written for them, just to make sure that everything makes sense. And this is the constant table. No biggie, just used for a lot of. Why is this here? This doesn't do anything. Anyways, it's just used for all the data validation and stuff. And data validation is the drop downs. If you didn't know, it's the stuff here. Like, yeah, you need like constants for LibreCalc to access those. Alright, that's just the very very fast breakdown of what I've done with LibreCalc. Honestly, now that I've done it, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it is kind of a lot of work. At least, what is it? A lot of work for me to figure out what the hell was going on in the API. But after that, it was kind of smooth sailing, though there was still some problems from that. Like honestly, I'm gonna complain real quick because honestly, this shit was actually so bullshit. I had a bug today before I started this video. Like I fixed it, right? I was implementing the filter. Implementing actually the hyperlink here. Let me try to find it. This, okay. While I was trying to get this thing to automatically generate hyperlinks, I had a bug where if I generate a hyperlink, it would put the formula in the cell, but it would result in an error. And the error would persist until I went into the spreadsheet, modified the string, modified the formula of the cell, so that one of the string parameters had an extra space, just so that LibreCalc would recalculate the cell, and then the error would go away. So I'm here thinking like, okay, so there's probably something to do with like when I'm editing it inside of LibreCalc, it's sort of different than the Python editing the stuff. So I was trying to figure out a way for it to get to recalculate and stuff like that. Only for me to finally realize that the problem was I had a comma here instead of a semicolon, separating the two arguments for this formula. And I wouldn't be talking about this if it was just like that, because okay, sure, syntax error, blah blah blah. But the really fucked up thing is, inside of LibreCalc Excel, the formula takes a comma. It doesn't take a semicolon. And although it does accept a semicolon separating the arguments, it will automatically translate the semicolon into a comma. So yeah, like it what? Whatever. And I'm like so over it, man. But yeah, um thanks for watching, I guess.